Hey guys, and welcome back to another Top 5 Tuesday. So I've recently done a couple of these. I did my favorite alien movies, my favorite shark movies, and a couple different movie reviews. But I'm going to change it up a little bit today. I'm going to do something a little bit more interesting, something a little fun. At least I find it fun. And what I'm going to do is my top 5 favorite creatures in horror. What I mean by creatures are not necessarily one specific creature itself, just kind of a broad view of the animal or creature that I think has the most impact in the horror world. It'll kind of make sense the more I go. So, kick back, relax, and let's go through this top 5. So, coming in at number 5 is something that is kind of a little off the radar. People may not necessarily think about it. In horror, there's maybe not a ton of it. It's a lot more sci-fi than necessarily horror. And that is the hybrids, the what the hell is this? Just the weird creatures. Creatures such as the piranhaconda, the whale wolf, the tetracuda, pterodactyl, barracuda, and my all-time favorite, sharktopus. Man, we even got some like the frankenfish and lava creatures, all these weird little combinations of creatures that kind of make you go like, what the heck is this? What am I looking at? Obviously, all of these movies are B, low scale, little lower budget movies, but they're still very, very fun to watch. I absolutely love them. There is one movie, I don't know if it kind of goes along with this, but may fall into this category, which is Sharknado. I don't think it does, but I can see that argument when it's kind of a weird combination. And so this obviously comes in at number 5 due to the fact that there isn't really that one big movie. As I go up the list, there's always at least one movie that is a standalone, like, yep, this solidifies this as a good, solid movie. I think the biggest one on this list that got the most popular was maybe Sharktopus. Frankenfish also got pretty popular. But outside of those, there's no real big time, like, yep, this is a big time movie. They're all very low budget, so that's why they come in at number 5. So coming in at my number 4 spot is a critter that I love. I am a fan of it. I'm actually a fan of all the critters on the rest of this list. They're up there with my top favorite type of animals. And there's a huge fear for this, and obviously people are terrified of these, and that is spiders. I think spiders make some of the really best monsters. They're creepy, they're quick, all the legs, the fangs, everything. I 100% get the fear when it comes to these horror movies. So spiders are very, very popular in horror and very popular in any of these kind of sci-fi B monster movies. But at least this one, unlike I feel like the hybrid one on number 5, have at least one good movie that I can think of, if not two off the top of my head, that kind of put it in that next sphere of, okay, so you do have at least a good solidified movie. And those to me is probably Arachnophobia, and then obviously one of my little guilty pleasures and one of my favorite movies, Eight-Legged Freaks. Outside of those, I mean, you got spiders, ice spiders. You got, what's it called? Sting, pardon me, which just recently came out. Kind of more of an alien spider than necessarily a real spider. And then it looks like we're actually getting a new one coming out. I can't think of the name about it, but it's about a giant prehistoric spider that actually hunts some people, so that looks pretty cool. So, like I said, coming in at my number 4 spot in horror monsters is spiders. Just a quick little backtrack onto the number 4, which was spiders. The new movie coming out is called Don't Move. Couldn't remember the name right off the top of my head, so I had to cheat and look it up. So when I came to my number 3 and my number 2, I tossed these back and forth, trying to really figure out which one it was that was going to take that number 2 spot. And to me, there was one movie that stood alone for number 2 that made it so that it got to where it was. So, coming in at number 3 is another one of my favorite animals of all time, and another one that a lot of people are terrified in, and that is snakes. So obviously, you have seen snakes in horror movies throughout all of eternity. But, like I said with a lot of the other ones, they do have some of those really good standalone ones, and obviously the biggest one that I know of is Anaconda. Anaconda is a great movie. Anaconda 2 is a really good movie. The new one with Jack Black and Paul Rudd, even though it's not necessarily a snake movie, there is a lot of snake into it. It's a comedy more than a horror, but that's also a very good movie. But I mean, you got like Python, and you got any of these other creepy ones on the sci-fi that Piranaconda, again, that's about another giant snake. And you have all of the other anacondas and pythons that go on and go on. So these are just really, really good in horror movies. They're always creepy. They're always scary. People just had this innate fear of snakes. I don't know if people get that fear through biblical reasons or just being grown up fearing snakes. Even though I love snakes, I'm not afraid of them. I just always feel like they're very cool and very creepy in the horror world. So they come in as my number 3. All right, so coming in at my number 2 spot is a critter or an animal that actually is one of my top 3 to 4 favorite animals to ever exist. These have some very, very good movies that I thoroughly enjoy. I don't think they have the same fear level amongst people as snakes or spiders do, but these make a really, really good horror character when it comes to any of these kind of movies, and that is crocodiles, alligators, whatever you want to be, a crocodilian. Obviously, they have that very high. They have a very good movie, which is actually one of my personal favorite movies, and I think is a highly underrated movie, and that is Lake Placid. Absolutely love Lake Placid. I remember when it came out. I remember renting it from my local video store and watching it. Have loved it ever since. Obviously, you also have Blackwater, you have Croc, you have Alligator, which is a good one. So you just have a ton of these different movies, and they're all over the place. Primeval is another one. If you haven't seen it, that's really good. Obviously, you do get later on in some of the Lake Placids, and they're more like straight to sci-fi movies, so they start to kind of fall off. But to me, the high of that one, of Lake Placid and Alligator and Primeval and Dark Water and Croc and all these ones, is higher than Anaconda. So I think the Alligator one just takes a little bit step forward because you got Anaconda in the second one and then maybe Python, but nothing else really reaches the level of Lake Placid and Alligator. So coming in at my number 2 spot of my best horror critters is a crocodile. All right, so to round out the list is number 1. And obviously, I feel like a lot of you may already know where I'm going with this. When it comes to the list, and you've seen what I mean by horror critters, all of these different type of animals, clearly the number 1 horror animal, probably forever, and I don't think it's ever going to change, is sharks. Sharks are all throughout the history of horror. They have always been a mainstay. They've always been a villain, which I don't like. I also feel like they make them hyper aggressive in movies, which kind of annoys me. I'm a shark lover. I love learning about sharks. I love seeing sharks. They're my second favorite animal ever. So I don't necessarily like seeing them portrayed like that, but for all intents and purposes for this video, they make an absolute great horror villain. Obviously, and I have been not shy about saying this, you have the greatest horror movie of all time that falls into this category, and obviously Lake Placid is really good, Anaconda is good, but Jaws is way up here. So like I said, Jaws, you have Jaws, and you've even got them recently, they're starting to pump them out again. They got Under Paris, they've had Thrash, they've had The Meg, they had Black Demon, you got The Reef, The Shallows, 47 Meters Down. You just have a ton of shark movies. And they're always good. They're always super successful, and people absolutely love watching all of these shark movies because they have this fear, this sense of afraid of the water. I remember being a kid and watching Jaws, and I was terrified to go into my pool because the half that was in the shadow, I knew he was in there. Makes no sense, but it strikes up this fear in people to not even go in the water, in the beach. They're afraid they're going to get attacked when they're ankle deep in a lake. So I love the fact of what they do. I love the fact that they install so much fear. And just all of these movies are good. You can never go wrong with watching a shark movie. So hope you guys enjoyed my list. Real quick, run them through. A hybrid, spiders, snakes, crocodiles, and sharks. That's my top 5 for best horror critters. If you guys have any top 5s you guys would like me to do or like me to see, let me know in the comments, and I'll do my best to get it going. Have a good one.